Boy refused to use school bus. One day Mum had enough and secretly followed behind. Every parent knows that gut feeling, the one that tells you something isn't quite right, even when everything seems normal on the surface. For Emma Wilson, it started with small things. Her 6-year-old son, Tyler, refusing to get on the school bus, nightmares that left him screaming in the middle of the night, and a withdrawn demeanor that replaced his once bright personality. At first, she brushed it off as typical childhood jitters, maybe an adjustment issue with his new teacher or classmates, but deep down, Emma couldn't shake the unease growing inside her. One chilly autumn morning, as Tyler clung to her leg at the bus stop, tears streaming down his face while begging not to go to school, something snapped within her. That day, instead of heading back home, after waving goodbye to the yellow bus, Emma made a decision that would change their lives forever. She followed behind. The story begins like any other ordinary weekday in their quiet suburban neighborhood. The sun filtered through white lace curtains, casting warm patterns over Emma's kitchen table as she prepared breakfast for her family. It was supposed to be a peaceful start to the day, but Tyler's behavior told a different story. His cereal bowl sat untouched, milk soaking into soggy loops, while his small hands nervously fidgeted with the edge of the placemat, a habit he'd developed recently. When Emma asked what was wrong, all Tyler could muster was a whispered plea. "I don't want to go to school today." Her heart sank. This wasn't just a phase. This was fear, raw and unshakable. And yet, when she voiced her concerns to her husband David, he dismissed them with a wave of his hand, chalking it up to first-grade jitters. But Emma knew better. Mothers always do. As weeks went by, Tyler's behavior grew worse. Bedwetting returned after years of being resolved. His grades slipped, and his usual chatter turned into silence. Then came the mornings at the bus stop. Tyler, trembling, pale, and visibly terrified, as the familiar rumble of the approaching school bus filled the air. Other parents exchanged sympathetic glances, some judgmental, as Emma tried to coax her son onto the bus. One name kept coming up during these tense moments: Buford, the friendly neighborhood bus driver who had been a fixture in the community. For decades, with his booming voice and practiced smile, Buford seemed harmless enough, offering candies to calm the children and ease their fears. But there was something about the way he leaned forward in his seat, the practiced ease of his reassurances, that lingered uncomfortably in Emma's mind long after the bus disappeared around the corner. Emma's instincts screamed louder each time Tyler struggled to board the bus, but without concrete evidence, her concerns felt like whispers against a wall of doubt. Even conversations with other parents yielded little clarity. Melissa Sanchez, whose son Oscar shared Tyler's class, confided similar struggles: withdrawal, declining grades, and inexplicable tardiness. Both boys rode the same bus route. Both exhibited signs of distress, and both were late to school, more often than they should have been. Yet, when Emma brought her worries to Principal Martinez, the response was frustratingly dismissive. Armed with GPS logs showing the bus arriving on schedule every day, the principal assured Emma there was nothing amiss. Still, the nagging suspicion remained, gnawing at Emma until she decided to take matters into her own hands. What she discovered shattered not only her world, but also the illusion of safety surrounding her son's daily commute. On that fateful morning, Emma parked her car discreetly behind a cluster of trees near the school, watching as the yellow bus pulled away from a side entrance she hadn't noticed before. Her heart raced as she followed at a cautious distance, dust rising from the tires ahead, obscuring her view. The narrow service road twisted through sparse groves of trees, each turn tightening the knot of dread in her stomach. Finally, the road opened into a small clearing where a weathered camper van sat partially concealed by the surrounding foliage. As the bus stopped beside the camper, Emma's breath caught in her throat. Through her windshield, she watched Buford step off the bus, his large frame unmistakable even from afar. Behind him, looking small and vulnerable, came Tyler. Every maternal instinct screamed at Emma to act, but she forced herself to stay hidden, dialing 911 with trembling hands. What happened next defied belief and left Emma questioning how many other children might have suffered in silence. What unfolded inside that camper remains etched in Emma's memory like a nightmare she can't wake from. Pushing past Buford, she found Tyler sitting on a bench, tears streaming down his face, clutching the hem of his rumpled polo shirt. The smell of candy wrappers and something sickly sweet filled the cramped space, while a digital camera sat ominously on a shelf above what looked like a makeshift bed. Tyler's confession broke Emma's heart. "He wanted to take pictures of me without my shirt," he whispered, his voice barely audible. "He said if I told anyone, no one would love me anymore." In that moment, Emma realized the full extent of Buford's manipulation, a calculated predator, exploiting his position of trust to prey on innocent children. But as police sirens wailed in the distance and officers surrounded the scene, questions swirled in Emma's mind. How long had this been going on? How many other families were living under the shadow of Buford's deception? And most importantly, could Tyler ever truly recover from the trauma inflicted upon him? The ripple effects of Emma's discovery spread far beyond her family. As news of Buford's arrest spread, other parents came forward with horrifying stories of their own. Melissa Sanchez arrived at the police station with her son Oscar, who confirmed Tyler's account of Buford's predatory behavior. Detective Morris revealed that Buford had tampered with the bus's GPS system, creating false records to cover his tracks. The investigation expanded rapidly, uncovering years of abuse involving multiple victims across different schools. Each revelation added weight to Emma's guilt and resolve. Guilt for not seeing the signs sooner, and resolve to ensure no child would suffer in silence again. Sitting in the bustling police station, surrounded by distraught families and officers working tirelessly to piece together the truth, Emma held Tyler close, promising herself and her son that they would face whatever came next, together. But the journey ahead won't be easy. As Emma drives her family home that night, the quiet streets of their neighborhood seem unchanged. Yet everything feels different. Tyler sleeps soundly in the back seat, his face peaceful for the first time in weeks. But Emma knows the road to healing will be long and fraught with challenges. A single question lingers in her mind, keeping her awake long after everyone else has fallen asleep. If she hadn't trusted her instincts that day, how much longer would Buford's reign of terror have continued? And what does it say about a system that failed so many children for so long? The answers remain elusive, buried beneath layers of pain and betrayal. But one thing is certain: Emma's courage has sparked a chain reaction, exposing the darkness lurking beneath the surface of their seemingly idyllic community. The question now is, what comes next? As the days turned into weeks, Emma found herself caught in a whirlwind of emotions and responsibilities. The initial shock of discovering Buford's true nature had given way to a relentless determination to protect Tyler and ensure justice was served. But the road ahead was anything but smooth. Every morning, she wrestled with the decision of whether to send Tyler back to school. The thought of him stepping foot on any bus again made her stomach churn. Yet keeping him home felt like letting Buford win. David, who had been skeptical at first, now stood firmly by her side, attending every meeting with detectives, counselors, and school officials. His guilt over dismissing Emma's concerns had transformed into fierce advocacy for their son's recovery. The investigation into Buford's activities expanded rapidly, uncovering years of calculated abuse that sent shockwaves through the community. Detective Morris revealed that Buford's tampering with the GPS system wasn't just a recent tactic. It had been perfected over decades. The bus driver had created an intricate web of deception, manipulating not only the technology, but also the trust placed in him by parents, teachers, and children alike. Each new piece of evidence painted a clearer picture of how deeply embedded Buford's crimes were within the fabric of their seemingly idyllic neighborhood. For Emma, this knowledge brought both clarity and anguish. Clarity because she finally understood the scope of what they were dealing with, and anguish because she realized how many others had suffered silently while she remained unaware. Tyler's therapy sessions became a crucial part of their daily routine. At first, he resisted talking about what happened in the camper, retreating into silence whenever the topic arose. But slowly, with the gentle guidance of Dr. Carter and the child psychologist, he began opening up. Through drawings and fragmented sentences, Tyler shared details that broke Emma's heart. The candies Buford used as bribes, the whispered threats about being labeled bad if he told anyone, and the suffocating fear that kept him compliant even when his instincts screamed to run. Watching her once vibrant son struggle to articulate his pain was almost unbearable, but Emma forced herself to listen, knowing that hearing his truth was the first step toward healing. Meanwhile, Melissa Sanchez and other affected families formed a tight-knit support group. They met regularly at a local church hall, sharing stories, resources, and strength. Melissa's son Oscar, who had initially refused to speak about his experiences, found solace in connecting with Tyler during these gatherings. The boys bonded over their shared trauma, often sitting quietly together while their mothers discussed legal proceedings and counseling options. Seeing Tyler smile, even briefly, was a small victory for Emma, a reminder that resilience could bloom even in the darkest soil. But amidst the progress, tension simmered beneath the surface. Some parents accused the school district of negligence, demanding accountability for failing to protect their children. Principal Martinez, once dismissive of Emma's concerns, now faced intense scrutiny from both the community and law enforcement. She organized town hall meetings to address the growing unrest, but her apologies rang hollow to those whose lives had been shattered. "We trusted you," one mother shouted during a particularly heated session, her voice trembling with anger. "You told us our kids were safe." For Emma, the anger directed at the school was understandable, but secondary. Her focus remained squarely on Buford and ensuring he faced the full weight of the law. Yet, as trial preparations began, doubts crept in. Would the justice system truly deliver closure? Could any punishment undo the damage Buford had inflicted? These questions haunted her late at night when sleep eluded her, leaving her staring at the ceiling while Tyler slept fitfully beside her. Sometimes, she'd hear him whimper in his dreams, and she'd pull him closer, whispering reassurances she hoped would seep into his subconscious. The climax approached faster than anyone anticipated. One evening, Detective Morris called Emma to inform her that Buford's defense team was attempting to negotiate a plea deal. The news hit her like a punch to the gut. After everything they'd endured, the sleepless nights, the endless appointments, the painstaking process of rebuilding Tyler's sense of safety, The idea of Buford avoiding a full trial felt unbearable. "He doesn't deserve leniency," Emma snapped, her voice sharp with frustration. "Not after what he did to our children." Detective Morris assured her that the prosecution was fighting hard to prevent any deals, emphasizing the overwhelming evidence against Buford. Still, the uncertainty gnawed at Emma, fueling her anxiety. She confided in David, who listened silently before pulling her into a tight embrace. "We'll get through this," he promised, though neither of them knew if it was true. Their marriage, tested by doubt and fear, had emerged stronger, bound together by a shared mission to shield their son from further harm. As the trial date loomed, Emma prepared herself for the emotional toll it would take. Prosecutors advised her to testify, along with Tyler, though they assured her that measures would be taken to minimize stress for the children. Sitting in her living room one evening, Emma practiced what she would say, rehearsing phrases until they felt natural. Tyler sat nearby, coloring absent-mindedly, occasionally glancing up at her with wide eyes. "Mommy, will Mr. Buford be there?" he asked suddenly, his voice barely audible. Emma froze, then knelt beside him, brushing his hair back gently. "Yes, sweetheart, but he won't hurt you anymore. We're going to make sure of that." The anticipation leading up to the trial was excruciating. Every knock at the door, every phone call, set Emma's nerves on edge. She tried to maintain normalcy for Tyler's sake, taking him to the park and cooking his favorite meals. But the underlying tension was palpable. Even David, usually calm under pressure, seemed on edge, pacing the house or flipping through channels without settling on anything. It was as if the entire family was holding its breath, waiting for the storm to break. Then came the day of reckoning. As Emma dressed in muted tones for court, her hands shook so violently that David had to help her button her blouse. Tyler clung to her leg, sensing her distress, and she knelt to hug him tightly. "It's okay to be scared," she whispered, tears welling in her eyes. "But remember, we're doing this so no one else has to feel the way you did." He nodded, solemnly, gripping her hand as they walked out to the car. The courthouse loomed ahead, its imposing structure casting long shadows across the parking lot. Inside, the air buzzed with hushed conversations and nervous energy. Families filled the benches, united by pain and purpose. And as Emma took her seat, preparing to face Buford across the courtroom, she felt a surge of resolve. Whatever happened next, she vowed to never let fear dictate her actions again, not for herself, and certainly not for her son. As the days turned into weeks, the full scope of Buford's crimes began to surface. The investigation revealed a chilling pattern that stretched back decades, implicating not just Tyler and Oscar, but numerous other children who had ridden his bus over the years. Each new piece of evidence deepened Emma's resolve to ensure justice was served, even as it tore at her heart to see how many families had been affected. Detective Morris called Emma one evening, his voice heavy with both exhaustion and determination. "We've identified 12 more victims so far," he said, pausing as if to let the weight of the number sink in. "Some are adults now, barely holding their lives together after what happened to them." Emma sat on the edge of her bed, gripping the phone tightly. She felt a mix of emotions: rage toward Buford, guilt for not seeing the signs sooner, and an overwhelming sadness for all the children who had suffered silently. David sat beside her, his arm around her shoulders, offering silent support. He had changed since that day at the station, becoming more attentive to Tyler's needs and more willing to listen when Emma voiced concerns. Their marriage had grown stronger through this ordeal, united by a shared mission to protect their son. The trial was set to begin in 3 months, and Emma prepared herself for what lay ahead. Prosecutors assured her they had a strong case, bolstered by physical evidence from the camper, GPS tampering records, and testimonies from multiple victims. But nothing could prepare her for the emotional toll of sitting in court, facing Buford across the room, and reliving every painful detail. Dr. Carter continued working closely with Tyler, helping him process his trauma while preparing him to testify. It wasn't easy. There were nights when Tyler woke up screaming, clutching his blanket like a lifeline. But slowly, he began opening up about his experiences, finding strength in knowing he wasn't alone. On the day of the trial, Emma dressed carefully, choosing clothes that made her feel grounded and strong. David stayed home with Tyler, who was too young to attend, but whose presence would be felt through video testimony. As Emma walked into the courthouse, she noticed Melissa Sanchez and several other parents waiting nervously outside. They exchanged quiet words of encouragement, their shared pain creating an unspoken bond. Inside, the courtroom buzzed with tension, reporters scribbling notes and attorneys whispering strategy. Buford sat at the defendant's table, his once friendly demeanor replaced by something colder, more calculating. Tyler's testimony came midway through the proceedings. Sitting in a private room with Dr. Carter by his side, he spoke softly into a microphone connected to the courtroom. His voice wavered as he described the candies, the threats, and the fear that kept him compliant. When asked why he hadn't told anyone, Tyler's answer broke everyone's hearts. He said no one would love me anymore. Emma buried her face in her hands, tears streaming down her cheeks. But she forced herself to stay composed. For Tyler's sake, across the room, Buford avoided eye contact, his lawyer attempting to discredit Tyler's account as the ramblings of a confused child. But Emma saw the cracks forming in Buford's facade, tiny fissures that hinted at the truth unraveling beneath. The trial progressed. Witnesses painted a damning picture of Buford's actions. Former students recounted similar stories of being lured to the camper with promises of candy or toys, only to face exploitation and manipulation. School officials testified about the tampered GPS system, exposing systemic failures that allowed Buford to operate undetected for so long. Even Principal Martinez took the stand, her polished exterior crumbling under cross-examination as she admitted dismissing early warning signs. The prosecution presented photos recovered from Buford's digital camera, images that left jurors visibly shaken and underscored the gravity of his crimes. When closing arguments arrived, the prosecutor delivered a powerful speech that resonated throughout the courtroom. "This isn't just about one man's depravity," she said, her voice steady yet impassioned. "It's about trust betrayed, systems failing, and children paying the price. We owe it to these victims, and to future generations, to hold Buford accountable for every moment of terror he inflicted." As she finished, the room fell silent, the weight of her words hanging in the air. The jury deliberated for 2 agonizing days before returning with a verdict: guilty on all counts. A collective sigh of relief rippled through the courtroom as Buford was led away in handcuffs, his head bowed. For Emma, the moment brought a mix of emotions: relief, vindication, and lingering grief for everything Tyler had endured. Outside, reporters shouted questions, but Emma simply held Tyler's hand tightly, shielding him from the chaos. "It's over," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "You're safe now." In the weeks that followed, life began to settle into a fragile normalcy. Tyler resumed therapy, gradually regaining confidence and joy. He started playing soccer again, his laughter echoing through the backyard as he kicked the ball with neighborhood Friends, Emma and David attended counseling sessions together, learning how to navigate the scars left by Buford's betrayal. They became advocates for child safety, pushing for stricter background checks and better monitoring systems for school transportation. Melissa joined them, organizing community workshops to educate parents on recognizing signs of abuse. One evening, as Emma tucked Tyler into bed, he looked up at her with wide eyes. "Mommy, will Mr. Buford ever come back?" he asked, his voice trembling slightly. Emma sat beside him, brushing his hair back gently. "No, sweetheart," she replied firmly. "He can't hurt you anymore, and I promise I'll always keep you safe." Tyler nodded, snuggling closer under his blanket. "I love you, Mommy," he murmured sleepily. "I love you too, my brave boy," Emma whispered, kissing his forehead. That night, as Emma stood in the doorway watching Tyler sleep, she reflected on everything they'd been through. The journey had been grueling, filled with moments of doubt and despair. But it had also taught her invaluable lessons about trust, resilience, and the power of maternal instinct. She realized now that protecting her child meant trusting herself, even when others dismissed her concerns. And though the scars would remain, they would heal together, step by step. Months later, the neighborhood seemed quieter, almost subdued. Parents greeted each other at the bus stop with cautious smiles, their conversations tinged with newfound awareness. A new bus driver had taken over Buford's route, a younger woman with kind eyes and a gentle demeanor. Tyler still hesitated, occasionally, but with each passing day, he grew more comfortable, his fears slowly fading like shadows in the morning light. For Emma, the experience had transformed her, not just as a mother, but as a person. She carried the memories with her, not as burdens, but as reminders of the strength she'd found within herself. And as she watched Tyler laugh with his friends, running freely under the autumn sun, she knew they would be okay. Together, they had faced the darkness and emerged stronger, ready to embrace whatever challenges lay ahead.